Well, thank you, Lynn. That's very sweet. I personally do think it's packed with information, which was my intention. And I hope I made it entertaining and readable for just everybody.
Oh, it is. It is. It was just delightful to run through it. My comment actually has to go back more to the whole paranoia thing you started out with. This is minor, but it's pretty typical of what's going on in the States. I wanted to order a product that I had to send a money order in for, and because there wasn't PayPal and I couldn't use my credit card, and it was just silly. So I go to the bank where I always buy money orders, but I haven't bought one for about 3 years, and they said, gee, we're really sorry. We have to take all this information, and then there will be a 5-day hold. And I said, excuse me?
What?
And the gal said, I'm really sorry, but these are the government rules. We have to hold your money order for 5 days. And I just stared at her, and I said, that's crazy. And she kind of laughed and said, yeah, that's crazy. And we chatted a little bit more about it, and finally I just said, they've all gone insane down there, which is why I live here now, although the reason I'm sure that they have to do that is because the U.S. went to Canada and said, by the way, because terrorists will, try to transfer money. This is $40, a $40 money order. I thought, this is...
God.
I know. So
order.
I ended up going to the post office because I'm sure they collect the information in different ways, but they weren't going to hold it for 5 days. But it's like it's filtered down to the most minute parts of our lives. This control, it's crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway,
I wonder if people ever get tired of all of the control. How could you not get tired of all of this control? Why do people want it in their lives? And you say, oh, they're afraid. And it's like, yes, but you're still afraid. You're afraid all the time, but now you're afraid with all these controls. And it's just why don't you just accept the fear and then go along with your freedom and just be like, yeah, I could get bumped over today or not, but you know what? At least I'm free.
Well, I think they're playing the security card. We're going to protect you from people sending $40 so they can buy, Simtex or whatever.
Well, at this point, they're kind of like milking a dead horse because, seriously, they've been instituting all these controls and stuff. Worse and worse stuff happens, and then you're just like, well, none of these controls are actually working, so let's just get rid of them. No one thinks like that.
I think people are very lethargic, and I'm sure this transmarginal inhibition has something to do with it. But it's just things that would have outraged somebody 4 years ago just barely get their attention these days. It's quite scary.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's just accepted.
What's really interesting, though, and I was pointing this out, I think, to Neil the other day, is that, growing up, I hung around with all these libertarians, and they were always saying, if they do X, Y, or Z, that's going to start a revolution. That's the line in the sand. And it's like they've gone past Z all the way around to A, B, C again. They've doubled over onto it, and none of these people did revolt.
It's like the Christians back in the 80s, and there was a whole bunch of stuff about the mark of the beast, and they're talking about what was it, a barcode? Yeah, barcodes were the mark of the beast, and that they were going to put barcodes on people. They were going to put barcode implants in them. And as soon as that happened, of course, Jesus was going to come, A or B, they were going to have a revolution. Things were going to, and it's gone so far beyond that now, and nobody has said a word.
I know. It's amazing. And I think because things did not turn out as people pictured it, then they just sort of went, well, okay, it really didn't happen. Because they had this picture in their head of what it was going to look like, and it didn't happen the way they thought it was going to happen, so it just kind of dropped off the radar.
So we're right back to Alexis de Tocqueville, will be all the more likely to follow a totalitarian government because it doesn't resemble one.
Right.
Well, not only that, but people didn't count on the use of fear.
Yeah.
Because now the very same people who would have been saying back in the 80s, well, if they come to me and they want to inject some kind of a barcode thing into my kids or whatever, I'm not going to let it happen. But then they start worrying about their kids getting lost, kidnapped, or whatever.
Yep.
And the fear factor gets pumped up, and they say, oh, yeah, inject a tracker in my kid. Inject, please, inject a tracker.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, anyway, I know you've got more calls. I just wanted to throw that little tiny piece of totalitarian.
All right.
Okay, good show. I can't wait to hear what else you have to say. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, so basically what she's saying is that all of these little controls in little areas throughout everyone's lives, all of them conspire to basically remind people that there is a threat. Threat can be from, well, originally it was kind of terrorism. It was terrorism abroad coming to the US. Now it's kind of like maybe homegrown terrorism based on these school shootings and these other guys who've been going off shooting people and stuff, so it's just a reminder all the time. Like Lynn just said, you go to do something in the bank, you go to transfer some money, and there's a reminder from the bank that there's some kind of threat, there's some kind of potential threat.
Yeah.
Even just in you transferring money, and that, I mean, people probably come across that in myriad ways many times each day or each week in the different things they do. The little reminder, the little meme is presented to them that danger, and all of that. I mean, the logical reason or agenda behind that, if there's an agenda behind it, would be to basically make people more dependent on authority, afraid basically, and therefore more dependent on authority to protect them. You know, I mean, it's not rocket science, but it is at a psychological level that maybe eludes some people,
There's two things that the whole thing brings to mind. The first one is Andrew Lobachevsky, in his book Political Ponerology, talks about the hysterization or the hystericization. I think he used the word hysterization, but something like that, so I changed it to hystericization of society. When a society becomes so frightened, so edgy, so
hysterical.
They basically become hysterical. And he was talking particularly about the dueling mania that was raging across Europe in the late part of the 19th and early part of the 20th century prior to World War I. And that it was this kind of edginess that led to World War I. That, people were just completely unable to handle their fears. They were unable... I mean, they would, go off half-cocked, at the drop of a hat. I mean, look at all the crazy things that are going on, all the crazy things people are doing. You got another caller coming in?
No.
Yeah. So.
But that's the first thing. But there's a second thing. The second thing is one thing that Victor Kluge points out, and I have found it myself in my own historical research, that during periods of increased cometary and fireball flux, that is, activity in the skies, people tend to become hysterical, and they don't appear to know why. And I have this idea that it's a nervousness. I mean, their system is taking in the fact that the weather has gone haywire, that there are increasing earthquakes, there's increasing fireballs, there's a lot of increasing activity on the planet. We're having food shortages, floods, incredible, crazy, freaky weather. People are taking this in, but all the while they're being told it's all normal
by the government that this is all normal, or worse, it's anthropogenic global warming.
It's your fault.
It's all your fault because you've made the world, heat up, and now we're all screwed.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're getting this cognitive dissonance going on. On the one hand, their system is reading it, and on the other hand, their brains are trying to normalize it, the normalcy bias routine. So by trying to normalize it, they're in conflict with what their evolutionary, people are designed, they've evolved. They evolved to survive in a hostile environment on a hostile planet. We have all kinds of systems in our body that read the environment. They detect the temperature, the light, the sound effects, the colors, the possible presence of threats and so forth. And all of that's evolutionarily implanted in us. So if your body is designed to do that, and it's picking all this stuff up, and you feel a threat, but your brain, your program, your transmarginally inhibited brain has been programmed to say, oh no, it's not that, it's this instead, this over here.
That's what they're getting from the authorities. They're getting propaganda from the authorities to rationalize it away.
So they have at one and the same time their bodily system telling them one thing, their brain, their program telling them another thing, and they're in a complete state of hysteria as a result, because they've got this huge inner conflict going on. They've got a war going on inside them, and it's making them crazy. You know, people were having basically a global nervous breakdown. That's what it is.
Because of this conflict.
There's a great book by Martha Stott. She's an expert on psychopathology, and she talks about something in almost the same terms that you just described, Laura, called limbic warfare, where our limbic system is picking up things from this environment.
What's our limbic system?
The limbic system is part of the brain that processes...
It's that evolutionary threat detection system.
Okay, right. And she makes the case that every time there's not just a real terrorist attacks aren't real, but every time there's an event that reminds people of the terror at a political level, it sets off their limbic system. It goes haywire. And she suggested in a great book called The Paranoia Switch that they are deliberately flicking this.
They keep pushing that button, pushing that button. They want to keep you in a state of terror because they want to keep you programmed. They want to keep putting in your mind what they want you to think and what they want you to believe, because pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. And that man behind the curtain, believe it or not, is out there, not over there.
Yeah, so they're substituting the threat over there for the threat out there to override it. Basically, because she says in her book, The Paranoia Switch, she says, we are hardwired to be most fearful of harm when it threatens to occur maliciously at the hands of our fellow human beings. And this special variety of fear is the most contagious of all. Right, so sure, there is obviously a natural human instinct
that they engage to distract our attention to what is really out there, and the reason is, and this is the greatest thing, I think one of the things Victor Klug wrote in his book, it was either The Cosmic Winter or no, it wasn't. It was the paper that he wrote for the Air Force. He wrote them an assessment of the situation, the comet threat. And he said in that paper, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, he says that we do not need, we need the Cold War to hide the celestial intentions.
Yeah, he said it's not that celestial intentions are being used to hide Cold War intentions, or celestial events or celestial threats are being used to hide Cold War intentions, the other way around.
Yeah. And I mean, the reason... Now the question is, do the people in charge, the power elite, do they know? Now, you know, I've gone back and forth on this. Back when I was writing The Wave and the Adventure series and all that, you know, I had come to the idea that surely they know. They know when they're making preparations. You know, they're digging underground bases. You know, they're basically getting ready to trash society. I mean, you remember this movie? It was kind of really a cheesy movie. This 2012, was that the name of it? Where they had the giant arcs in China or something?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that the reason for the end of the world in that movie was absolutely stupid. But the idea of the government, you know, preparing a place for themselves, and, you know, everybody with billions of dollars can buy into it. And I mean, just think about the fact that Bill Gates, you know, bought into that big seed vault up there in, where is this, Svalbard, Norway, you know, so that, I mean, do they really know? Do they really understand? So I thought, okay, they really know. They really understand. That's why they're doing these underground bases. That's why they got people programmed. That's why they created 9/11. They wanted to get people transmarginally inhibited so that they could program them and control them. They want to keep them busy because they don't want them paying attention to the earthquakes. They don't want them paying attention to the noctilucent clouds. They don't want them asking the real important questions about what's going on with our climate. They invented this whole anthropogenic global warming business, and I mean, we were on top of that right when it was happening.